but it lives internally in your business. And so if you are a company that's going public and you're not thinking about how we communicate to people or how they get access to the information that's relevant to them, ultimately that is it is a very scary spiral to subject your internal teams to, because they have to answer those questions and those relationships then get put at risk because it's such a heightened emotional state for your employees. And there are plenty of examples of IPOs that, where communication hasn't been handled particularly well, and people go to LinkedIn or they go to Twitter and they get frustrated with it, or they, bombard your equity team internally with questions about where are my shares? I don't have visibility into these things. Did somebody make an administrative mistake? And none of those problems are unsolvable. What we do is we lean on technology to clear the way from the emotional side of things, so that you can focus on the relationship side of things, so that you can focus on the higher value add work. And so, our belief is that we've built the perfect solution to deliver that visibility and take out a lot of the pain and emotional heartache at Vinyl. But it is important to find aligned partners, well-aligned partners who enjoy working together and who can work together effectively with enough advance notice, again, to deliver the comms appropriately. So, as we round the corner on half an hour here, Chris, Jackson, is there anything that you want to take a dive into that you feel like we neglected? Chris, you could probably talk for hours on some of the technical stuff and on the planning side of things related to, how people should be thinking about taxes and various structures of equity plans and things like that. And if there's a moment for you to educate everybody who's listening, maybe that's something we want to take a dive into before wrapping up. And I'll also note Chris and Jackson are great resources to talk to reach out to have conversations about this as you're thinking about getting to that moment. So if we don't cover everything here today, feel free to give them a shout. But Chris, I'll give you the floor just to what I know is a passion of yours.
Well, what I was going to say, and you're gonna chide me for using analogies the entire call, but I would say before you do an IPO, it seems massively daunting as far as what you have to do. How do I get this done? How do I get this reconciled? What you want to do is lay out the steps. So reconciliation before you go from the cap table to an actually registrar is critical, because each one of those items may or may not set you back to more research, find out whether or not you had right of first refusal on a buyback or something like that. All of those are going to pop up because of the reconciliation. But then when people say, how do I get this all done? It's the same thing as how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. You really just have to break it down to the simplest parts and attack them one by one. And as they do that, streamlining the plan, streamlining vesting events, streamlining the fact that maybe people should realize whether or not there's a stock split, and doing that before you do the issuance, so they understand what they saw as a private company and what they're seeing as a public company. Those type of things. I just invest in the prep, and it will pay off in more ways than that.
Something we see a lot of on the note about reconciliation is that most of our peers in the market will just take your records as you deliver them to them. And one of the things that we do at Vinyl is we actually take your records and we kick off a diagnostic back to you. And the diagnostic says, oh, tax identification number is missing here, or this is categorized as a trust, but it's actually a joint tenant account. And we do our best to clean up the records before we ingest them, because we know that there's a bunch of downstream pain that is going to occur if we take the records in and we just let it exist in our system. And so I think, and Chris, to your point, when I was at AngelList, we had which was the company that I was at prior to founding Vinyl, we saw probably more term sheets than any other venture capital fund on the planet, just because of the nature of our business. And the frequency with which we would unearth errors that had been made in the cap table in prior rounds of funding, or things that weren't considered or contemplated in advance of an IPO, um, it was frankly pretty astounding. And so there are things that you need to pay attention to in your cap table that may not have been 100% right. That may require a little bit of cleanup. You'll have employees who you may have lost track of, or former employees that you may have lost track of, um, and you don't want to start that experience off with bad data, right? We live in a world where data is gold, and good data is the only thing worth anything. And so, we view this opportunity and this window as the perfect time to take a fundamental reset, to take a step back, to review and assess everything, to reconcile your records, and then to make sure that you get out in the public markets on solid footing. And so, I think, Chris, that's a great point. Jackson, anything on your end before we wrap up?
I would probably just end by saying this. I think it's important, and it might sound a little, cliche for me to say this, but I would be remiss if I didn't. I think it's important to remember when you go through this, part of why you're doing this. You and your organization have worked tirelessly for years and years and years to get to this moment. And from the perspective of your employees, you have spent a lot of time and resources, and probably some blood and sweat and tears over the years, to put together these plans that are now real dollars for people. And, it's okay to celebrate that, and not just to celebrate that with kind of your own administrative team, but to celebrate that with your employees. It's a momentous occasion to go public. And yes, it's a very stressful and hectic and complicated time, but it's also a really exciting time. And so I would not lose sight of that, even when the days may get long or things get hard. You're still doing something really, really cool for yourself and your organization and your employees.
So with that, we'll wrap up here. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Jackson, for joining me. Thank you to the JP Morgan Workplace Solutions team for giving them the permission to join me. And that's another Vinyl Equity on the record. We'll be back next month with another exciting conversation. So keep an eye out. And if I know that there were some technical challenges for some folks getting in. If you didn't catch the first few minutes, this is recorded and it is accessible. Once we wrap up here, we'll upload it to LinkedIn, and you can catch the beginning part, the beginning of the conversation. Thanks so much for joining us, and we will see you on the next one.
Thank you.
Thanks, Rob. Thanks, everybody.
All right. Take care.
We thank you for joining us on this webinar, and we hope you enjoyed this conversation with Rob, Chris, and Jackson. For more information, please scan their QR codes or visit us at vinylequity.com. Please join us in April for a conversation with Evan Siegel, Managing Director at Apollo Global Management. Follow us on LinkedIn for updates on past and upcoming webinars. Thank you again, and enjoy the rest of your day.